My name is Nicholas Rubaugham. My pronouns are he, him. I'm running to represent Ward Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi on this year's Municipal Council election. I just want to begin by recognizing that we are gathered on Treaty 6 territory in Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi, Wiskagan, the traditional gathering place of many Indigenous peoples. That's really important to me because it has a strong intersection with the work that I do and a lot of the community initiatives I've been involved in. I wasn't born in Edmonton. I'm originally from Saskatchewan. But I've lived in Edmonton for a long time and have lived in other places as well. But for the past decade, I've worked with a number of community organizations, nonprofits, and the business community to strengthen Edmonton's neighborhoods and economy. Much of my work has been in housing. I definitely have a background in that. I've done all kinds of housing, though: market housing, affordable housing, infill, and greenfield. A lot of people know me as being the executive director of IDEA for a time. That was great work for me. I loved being able to represent Edmonton's business community in that regard. For me, housing is more than buildings. It's about creating safe and welcoming communities. So a lot of the things I brought up, it starts with the home and then kind of builds out from there. As I said, I've also supported a number of Indigenous-led initiatives and helped local entrepreneurs access funding and grow through my own business, Foresight Advisory. I've also been a former leader of Inclusive Business Networks. I was the executive director of the Alberta 2S LGBTQI+ Chamber of Commerce. That's me.
I beg your pardon. I just said that's beautiful, and thank you so very much, Nicholas.
Oh, thanks.
Over to you, John.
Thanks, T, and it's a real pleasure to be back here. It's been on your show a couple times, and I've always appreciated your work and your advocacy for your community. So my name, once again, is John Morgan. I'm running to be your city councillor for Ward Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi. For the last 12 years, my family and I have been proud to call Ward Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi home, and in particular the community of Rutherford here in Heritage Valley. I've raised my children here, I've built connections with neighbors, and worked alongside community members to make our ward a better place to live. I believe in empowering my neighbors, accountability, and creative thinking, navigating city processes that we can deliver on the services that Edmontonians rely on. Whether it's improving our transportation corridors, addressing public safety, investment in infrastructure, and strengthening the frontline services, my focus is on delivering results that matter to you. So I look to be your counselor. I will be accountable, available, engaged, and community-centered. That's what I've done in the past. That's what I look forward to doing in the future. Looking forward to collaboration with stakeholders and building a stronger, safer, more connected Ward Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi. Thanks, T.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. Rami, my apologies about sending you to a different studio. My fault. Forgive me. But you're welcome to the studio tonight. Introductions are 2 minutes, and then it's 1 minute to answer questions. When you're ready, sir.
No problem. First of all, thank you so much for you hosting such a particular forum, and also nice to meet all of my candidates that we are running in the same ward. And I just wanted to, you asked me to introduce myself. So my name is Remy Damien, and I have been living in the ward in Edmonton since 1983. In the same location, same house, and I have definitely seen the city grow many folds. I don't understand. I think your question is, why am I running? Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I didn't see the original questions. I logged in a little bit, few minutes late. So the reason I am definitely running is because I do definitely see the city going in a direction I am not very comfortable and happy about. The city has a lot of work to be done, and it needs to be managed as a big corporation. There are people's livelihood is actually on the edge for being in the city, and that to me is a little bit not acceptable. There are definitely 3 reasons, major reasons, and I'm quite sure a lot of people have similar concerns. It is some kind of a control for the budgeting. I somehow see that the city is not managing. When I say the city, I mean the council. The council with our mayor are not managing the way it is supposed to be managed. Number 2 is the security and the crimes is definitely, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's definitely in the increase. and infrastructure is for sure, to me, not acceptable for a nice city that is a lot of people depend on. So those are the major things that I am running for the city municipal election. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Remy. One thing that is sure is that we're all here because we love Edmonton. Okay, we are here because we're passionate. And so it brings me to my very, very first question. And again, Ms. Funke will start first. Why do you feel you're right and ready for this role?
I feel like Edmonton is at a crossroads. I have been listening for a long time based on the work I do. I've done a lot of community-based research here in Edmonton, and a lot of the work has been in the housing space. And as I've listened more, I believe that I am the right person. Edmonton right now, like I said, is at a crossroads. We need bold leadership that listens and turns those stories into actionable items. For example, while I was door knocking, a lot of people have been talking about property taxes. At this point, we need some sort of transparency for our taxes, and I am committing to doing that, committing to connecting with folks and giving them the communication and what they need right now. So it seems like we need what Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi in particular needs leadership that is ready to advocate, ready to be bold, and ready to be collaborative, working with other city councillors and the mayor to be able to deliver on promises that we set out for our residents, for everyone in Edmonton. And my record, all of the work I have done for the last decade or so have always led to that point, actionable solutions.
I can testify, if I may, that you are a leader that is ready to advocate. I have seen you in action. That is true. And when you talk about transparency concerning property taxes, I dare say this is what we need from this council. And it's a topic we'll all come back to discuss a bit more. Thank you. Nicholas.
Thanks. I really think it comes down to my leadership style that makes me the best candidate for the job and why I think I would fit in. Good governance to me comes down to three things: bringing resident needs forward, debating solutions that are actionable, not just aspirational, and ensuring council has the resources to deliver. I think I bring the leadership and the collaborative approach and the listening first approach that really feeds into that. Because it's been the foundation of my entire career. Operational efficiency and turning priorities into outcomes is what I do, whether through housing, inclusive economic development, or partnerships. I've focused on removing barriers and creating opportunities. And I also know how to forward change because my work has repeatedly brought me before council and administration. I understand the processes, I know where the roadblocks are, and I know how to move solutions from idea to implementation phase, which I think is a real problem right now in terms of our policy development. That's why I can deliver responsible leadership on day one.
All right, thank you very much, Nicholas. I've heard what you've said about delivering operational efficiencies and that you're a chief collaborator. Thank you. John.
Thanks, T. So in 2021, I ran against our current councillor and obviously lost. When I lost, I told myself, though, that anybody that would listen, that there's more than one way to serve a community, and I don't have to be an MLA or MP, or in this case, city councillor, to serve my community. So when I lost, I went back to serving this community. I continued to coach community soccer. I was president of the Heritage Point Community League here in Rutherford and McEwen for the last 5 years. I was leading my neighbors with delivering events, programs, and building out infrastructure like our Rutherford ice rink. I represented all of the community leagues in our ward at Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi on the board of the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues. I sat on the Johnny Bright School Council. I did outreach with Edmonton's most vulnerable, with Water Warriors, and I continue to serve Edmontonians every day at work with Edmonton Transit. So what I realized is that with all of my activities that I was doing, my career, my volunteer work, my focus was always on relationship building and building capacity for my community. And so whether that was in Rutherford here or my city or at large, there are a lot of visionary people on council, a lot of really strong policymakers and academics, and just like around this forum tonight, to to be quite frank. But what's been unfortunately missing for me, from my perspective here, is that ground level voice that I bring as a frontline worker, as a community leader, to hold accountable our decision makers, our administration, and even our frontline. So I've spent the last 18 years of my career building those relationships in my city while serving my community on multiple boards with multiple organizations. I'm over time. I've navigated the city on multiple levels from multiple directions. And as we move forward, that service to the city and community is going to be crucial to our shared success.
Okay, thank you so much, John. I've seen you in the community. This is true, and I've seen your work also with Edmonton Transit. So well done, and thank you for everything that you do. Thank you, Rami. Okay, we need to unmute you there, sir.
So if you don't mind, Ati, just tell me the question again so that I know for sure I'm answering you directly.
Why do you feel you're right and ready for this job, sir?
Excellent. So this shop is a council member. So what does a council member really do? Like if anybody asks, what do? They just hear there is a council member. So a council member aids the council with the mayor based on 5 things and 5 things only: is to represent the public interest, setting policies which is good for the general public and the city, overseeing the administration, make sure the administration is aligned with what the councillors want, engaging the communities, which is part of listening to them and tell them where are we going and so on, and proving the budget and the spending. And the spending part here is the one that actually is pushing me to work for this particular position. I see around me, and part of my introduction I didn't say, but I have been in real estate in the city of Edmonton since 1997, and I have helped with the school lunch program, which is, I see unfortunate kids in the city of Edmonton are actually super hungry. When the first time I did that, I come from a country called Sudan, and I have never thought in Edmonton, in Alberta, we are going to see hungry kids like that. I worked with unfortunate families that they cannot even house themselves for basic housing. Then I look at some municipal people, we depend on them in the municipality, such as the Edmonton Transit Service, bus drivers, mechanics, and so on. Just a little while ago, they were voting if they should go on a strike or not. Those are the people we depend on. Why are they unhappy? Why are they unhappy from the city or the city administration in general? The civil servants, about a year ago or so, I can't remember the exact date, they were actually going on a strike, and then they made an agreement. Those are the people we depend on.
All right, sir. So, sir,
But there a time limit? Sorry, I wasn't sure if there was a time limit.
Yes, it's a minute. Let me catch up to speed here. So the introductions were 2 minutes. And when you speak, you get the full screen. And when your time is up, you come back into the fold like you are. So I think we give you extra 30 seconds.
No problem. Forgive the misunderstanding.
Yes, no, I mean, 1983, since 1983, you've been in your ward, and you've been engaging in the community actively since 97. We thank you, sir, for all that you're doing. And this brings me to our next question. When you go door knocking, how bad really are things in, I promise you, I learned how to pronounce the name of this word. I learned it where it's left my head now, so I'm not even going to try because people will slaughter me. So when you go door knocking, we're going to start with John. How bad are things? What are the top 3 things you're hearing? And what do you think, what do you intend to do on day 1 if you do get this job? We'll start with John.
How bad are things, T, did you say?
Yes, how bad has this present council made things, and what do you intend to do if you get this job?
I don't think that's a fair thing to say, to how bad did the council make things. I think they have challenges that they've been dealing with. I know there's people that are discontented, a lot of disgruntled people. I've heard my number 1 issue I'm hearing about is taxes. I'm hearing a lot about infrastructure, especially down here in Heritage Valley, where we see roads that are way over capacity right now. We have lots of concerns about snow removal, and I guess like the big thing for me is what I'm kind of taking away from all of that is that people really want to see that focus on those those, I guess, those core services, what those core services are, can be sometimes different to different people. But, like, people want to see the city doing what the city does. And so we see value in buses going back and forth. We see value in garbage being picked up on time. We see value in the potholes being filled. We see value in good infrastructure projects that are on time. And I'm out of time myself, so I guess I'll leave it at that. But it's been eye-opening for sure. But the challenges that the city faces is that you can't just throw that all on city council. There's much larger things at play, a lot of catch up going on, and honestly, a lot of funding challenges too that is being faced. So right now.
And I don't mean, John, to knock this council, I dare say, but over this past week that we've done this forum, I've heard quite a lot. This unemployment is 12%, is the worst it's ever been. So if you're out there without a job, you have no sympathies for
it's definitely. I'm way over time. There's people are stressed in crisis.
I'm just trying to see from my own point of view, when you hear that seniors are having to leave their homes because they cannot afford the increases in property taxes. These are genuine concerns that we cannot hide from or be polite about. And I'm sorry if but some of these things actually do need to be said the way they are, but that is fine. We're going to go to Mr. Rami, sir.
Well, you are asking a very good question. And I have been on the assessment review board where the people are actually complaining to the city about their property tax. And those seniors and non-seniors, there are people who cannot afford their property taxes. And this is not acceptable for me to see the city is wasting spendful money. And I do see it. And I will say that in a very clear voice. Your question was asking, what do the people complain about? Or you said not happy about, but let's say complaining about. It is definitely their property tax is increasing. The infrastructure is definitely not there in the city. And the crime. I live here in the ward and this Century Park train station. Go ahead and take a look. It is very filthy, it's very dirty, and just outside the doors of this particular Century Park, you can see what they call it, people using drugs. Go ahead to McDonald's on 23rd Avenue and 111th Street at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. It looks like a shelter. And when I say a shelter, this is not like just for housing homeless people. I don't know how the operation of such a particular business can run. This is not acceptable.
I agree that is the problem, but thank you very much, sir. Nicholas?
Yeah, for me, it's three things. Unsurprisingly, taxes for sure, construction being another one, and safety. Where taxes are concerned, I do feel people are feeling stretched and they don't see the value for the services that are being delivered. But I think it also goes beyond that. I'm glad you brought up employment. I think we need more proactive approaches beyond just fiscal responsibility, diversifying revenue being one of them. How do we attract investment in our city and with that attract talent and create talent retention and create jobs? I'd also like to explore secondary sources of revenue so residents don't have to bear the brunt alone. From construction, it's definitely the bottlenecked arterial roads. They're definitely over capacity. It makes commuting so impossible. I think that there's things that can be done in terms of better scheduling, better execution of these projects. Yes, these projects, the widening of the arterial roads and the LRT expansion have started, but there's the ability to come in and find ways that we can get that work done faster. And then safety is the big thing, LRT and in neighborhoods. It starts with listening to residents and tailoring responses. EPS has a role, but design is also a big part of it. How we design our neighborhoods and the environments that we live in create a sense of safety.
Ms. Finke, my understanding is people didn't get your introduction. I'm hearing that we've missed it. Are you able to go over your introduction real quickly and then address this? I think people want a better introduction to you, ma'am.
Sure. All in 1 minute, or how long do I have?
Well, we'll give you time.
Okay, awesome. Apologies for that. I guess some folks may have gotten to the wrong link as well. So once again, my name is Funke Olukude. I am mom of two. I currently live in the ward. I live in Ward Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi, raising two amazing children. I live in the neighborhood of Chappelle, and I am a nonprofit leader. I am a trained social worker, and I'm also a teacher at Northwest College. I have over a decade of bringing people together to solve very hard, complex problems. From housing, I worked on the affordable housing strategy with the city of Edmonton under Don Iverson's council. I've also worked in child welfare policies, practices. I actually started frontline, so I've built myself from the ground up. I also am the CEO of Hexagon Wellness Solutions, helping small businesses and nonprofits scale up their operations and making themselves more efficient as well. And coming to the question that Ms. T has asked, what are your top 3 things you're hearing? As myself and my team were door knocking, we're hearing a lot about taxes, of course. The others in the forum have already alluded to that. But one concrete thing I have committed to is transparency for your taxes. What do I mean by that? Very early on from the get-go, I'm committing to working and exploring together with my fellow city councillors, as well as city admin and everyone else who should be part of this conversation. We all come together to figure out how we can better help people get the information about their taxes. So breaking it down, I've heard a lot of folks at the door saying, for example, I pay $4,000 in taxes, property taxes, but what does that actually mean? What does that translate to? Because once we have transparency, then we can begin to demand accountability. And that's what I'm committing to. So even looking at how we send out the notices, and maybe we can make it more friendly and more readable and more digestible for residents of the ward. The second thing I'm also hearing lots of course, is community safety, but speeding is actually an issue. From my home community of Chappelle all the way to Bearsford, Sweetgrass, we've heard it across the ward, across Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi. Speeding, I was in Grading Hill a couple of days ago, and someone was actually talking about speed racing. So how do we get signs out? And these are growing communities with young families, young children, sometimes playing on the streets. So how do we get more signs out, more safety, equipment, more things to also alert people that speeding is an issue. So those are 2 things that we've heard of. And again, you talked about the third one, of course, is traffic. Traffic is a big issue in the ward, but those are the 2 things I'm committing to right now to help sort of like explore together with admin and other folks once I get elected.
Thank you very much, Ms. Funke. It takes me to our next set of questions. And Ms. Funke, you just alluded to transparency. You are committing to be transparent with our taxes, if you do get elected. And the first question is about the way most people feel, I think, being disconnected with City Hall. So it seems as though many Edmontonians feel increasingly disconnected from City Hall. Do you agree with that perception? And if so, what would you do differently to restore trust and responsiveness between City Council and its residents? Can we start with Ms. Funke here, please?
Absolutely. I believe folks are distracted. It's not about not being connected. I think there's a lot of things happening. We've been talking about affordability in so many different ways in this conversation already. So there's a lot of things happening for folks. As I continue to listen, that is the best strategy. Always making sure that we are listening. It's always a loop. We listen and then we act. We listen and then we act. And when we act, we always have to go back and inform people. So we don't just listen and run away and take action, making sure that we're always staying engaged, always. Right now, we're all door knocking because it's election season. I am committing to door knocking, whether it's election, whatever time it is, but listening is a very important thing. People need to feel like they're seen. People need to feel like they're heard. That's very important in their engagement cycle. Another thing that I'm committing to doing is we always talk about assessment. One thing we need to get better at is impact analysis. How are different sectors impacting each other? That's something we talk about employment, we talk about health, we talk about transit, sometimes each sector is always impacting each other. So that's another thing we need to strengthen as a city, is the impact analysis, and also bringing that loop back to the residents of Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi and also the general Edmontonian community as well.
Ms. Funke, we listen, we act, we stay engaged. Thank you very much for your answer. You're listening to Candidate Forum 2025. My name is T. Adeyemo. I'm the curator of the website ladiescorner.ca. You're watching from our YouTube channel at lccmedia.one. You do well to like and subscribe to our channel. I'm going to ask John the same question. Did you want me to read the question again to you, or you're good?
No, I got it, T. So yeah, I think we're all feeling disconnected across the board from all levels of government and industry too. We're in constant crisis. We're seeing constant changes. We don't really understand the decisions that are being made and whether they're in our best interest or not. There's a lot of misinformation out there too, and so when we struggle day to day, we often don't have time for the proper engagement on our end in the community, but we don't necessarily get all the specifics, so we need to. So, you know, I think a lot about what's going on with infill in the city right now, which is you know, infill is positive in terms of we need density. We can't keep growing out. Our services are stretched as it is, and we want to protect our farmland and locally grown food, but there are legitimate concerns with infill as well that people are not being heard about. You know, parking is one I keep hearing about, and I'm not sure we need to return to parking minimums, but if you don't have parking, which a lot of people live without cars, do you have good transit? Do you have good multimodal pathways for people to get in and out of their communities? Do you have some of these other transportation options that that can serve those areas? And so I think sometimes we've in the name of progress or in the name of just getting her done, we've forgotten to really listen to some of these legitimate concerns about some of the progress that we're making. And when we don't do that, people get disenfranchised, they feel disconnected, they don't want to be in support, and they need to be in support. We need to move forward as a city as well. So I look forward to that, more of that meaningful engagement as we move forward, and look for that from our representatives.
I look forward to that too. Thank you very much, John. I see a lot of people are putting questions on our live stream. I'm grateful for that. Keep your questions coming. We will have a segment where we get the candidates to ask each other questions, and we will take questions from members of the public too. So we got John. Now on to Rami.
Well, your question is, are people disengaged from what's happening in the city? I believe the people who are interested in knowing what the city usually follow up the city meetings and so on. Although the city meetings, I have followed it up many times, I see that it's very lengthy in time. So I cannot be able to answer a question, sir, because I don't know if the people are disconnected or not. The city does advertise that they are going to have the particular meeting. They do have live stream. You can streaming. You can go into the city hall and be an observer. So I'm not sure if I'm qualified with enough information to answer that question at this time.
Okay, well, that's fair. I appreciate your honesty there, sir. Thank you. Nicholas?
Yeah, I feel trust and connection comes from listening, definitely, like Funke said, and then the action piece is so important. Right now, I think a lot of the distrust has come from ideology being prioritized over practicality. We haven't been able to see real action taken on the things that are discussed in council, and when they do, it lacks the forethought of whether or not the resources are available. And I think that's really what's brought us into the property tax discussion a lot. The city is constantly overspending because it's reacting to decisions that it has to make without the forethought of an informed perspective, and then realizing after the fact, oh, we don't have the resources to do that. Oh, we've over budgeted again. And that's a concern for me. I think things need to be actionable, but there also needs to be resources in order to engender that trust. If I'm elected, I hope to build that by creating more transparency, definitely in the budget, so that people can see, okay, this is what we can do now. Here's what we can do later. We're hearing that you want this, but we don't have the resources to act on this right now.
Well, thank you. I like your practicality there, Nicholas. We're going to move on to the next set of questions. You'll all agree with me that our property taxes are a major concern for families and businesses. In 2024, property taxes were increased by 8.4%, and in 2025 by 5.7%. Do you believe Edmonton has a spending problem, a revenue problem? And what specific steps would you take to ensure that taxes are fair and sustainable? Rami, would you like to go first, sir?
Thank you so much for the question. The property tax is extremely important for Edmonton to operate as a corporation. However, I see the spending part must be controlled. As I said, I was part of the Edmonton Assessment Board, and that is when people are complaining about the property tax, and I have heard it a lot. I'm not talking about just normal neighborhoods or very lavish or luxury neighborhoods or houses that they are not as like they're below, let's call it the average house selling price in Edmonton. Everybody is really affected, and this is definitely not acceptable. Why it's not acceptable? Because I do the city spending the money. How do I see that? I'll give you an example. I know of a location. The city has spent $1 million making the location, beautifying it. Within few years, when I talk few years, I can't remember if it's 3 years but it's less than 4 years, they came and they demolished everything and they did it all again. It almost sounds like a husband and wife getting a divorce, and one doesn't like the decoration of the other, so they redecorated the area. That is tax payables money. Then when the city is spending money in something like the electric buses, and they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars that in the infrastructure of the buses, who's in control? Did the city really do their due diligence the way they were supposed to do due diligence? And the company now went bankruptcy. As I said, we have to control this spending that is happening from all over the city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Funke.
As a community-based researcher, and really what that means is just listening to people's stories, is it's going to be hard for me to say yes or no, the city has a spending problem, because it's not a job I've ever done. I haven't seen the evidence as to how and why they make those decisions. Some decisions are public, some decisions are also made in private. What I would do differently, like I said, is first we get transparency, we get all of the information out there, we speak to folks, we listen to folks, and based on evidence, of what the evidence tells us, then we make an informed decision. At this point, what I'm hearing that it does certainly is folks are not happy. Folks know, of course, taxes is what helps us run, our city, but also looking at other sources of funding. As the city councillor, exploring with city admin, with other rights holders, are there other sources of funding beyond property taxes that we could explore as well? Paying property taxes, but also a value for your services, level of services, especially in what Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi, one of the fastest growing wards in Edmonton right now. So people are not feeling like they are getting the value for their property taxes. So it's a holistic conversation. It's a conversation that is multifaceted, that before we get to the conclusion whether we have a spending problem or not, we first need to look at the evidence. We first need to see how we're spending. We first need to look at the needs, the current needs of Edmonton right now as well. So I'm committed to doing that as a city councillor, is to bring everyone together, to figure this out together, not as one city councillor or in silos, but working together to make sure that folks are not feeling the squeeze that they are currently right now.
Thank you very much. John.
Thanks, Dee. Thanks, Funke. I've hit half of the ward, like 11,000, 12,000 doors in this ward so far. Half of the doors are telling me, at least half of the doors are telling me taxes is the number one issue for them. And I don't blame them. Things are getting tight. It's tight in my household. We have to do better. And I think we have challenges on both ends, spending and raising that money as well. So I think we do have to get creative on those funding models. Funky said it herself just a minute ago too. So we used to have a funding agreement with the city or with the province and other levels of government. I think that's maybe something we need to return to. But I also think we could probably do better. I've been with the city for 18 years. You know, I would love to see a different way of funding, doing our budgeting. You know, doing the zero-based budgeting and starting from the ground up, not having the same budget every year or building off of that, making sure that we're using every dollar to the best of our ability, and really respecting people's ability to pay and want to stay in their homes and their ability to, you know, pay for their essentials as well. So I think we see value with boots on the ground. Which, you know, I'm a part of, but I would like to see kind of a return to some of that as well. So,
all right, John, thank you.
Can I
Nicholas?
make a comment into that regards? Please forgive me. I'm not trying to take more time, but in this regards of the property tax, when I am at the assessment review board, I will tell you what I heard. I heard people property tax jumped 30%, 40%, 25% from the assessment of the previous year.
All right, so we do need to keep. You can see our time is ticking very fast. Unless you're agreeing with me, you stay right here with me till 9 p.m. We need to keep to a schedule, sir. Nicholas, please. Thank you.
Yeah, like to answer the original question, I definitely think the city has a spending problem. Maybe it's because I work with the city a lot and I've worked on a number of initiatives. I've seen it happen over and over and over again where there's been a lack of efficient spending, a lack of priority. I don't think it's all that though. I love that Edmonton is a people-first city, is a city that has a lot of things it wants to deliver on. But as a jurisdiction, a municipal jurisdiction, our core services are only going to be handled by us. We can do the most amazing things as a city, but if we can't get our snow cleared, our potholes fixed, and our garbage managed, then we're kind of failing Edmontonians. Beyond the smarter spending, though, I think that there are solutions to kind of ease the burden. We need to grow the non-residential tax base in the city. It's been recognized in a recent fiscal gap report presented to City Council earlier this year that we are severely lacking in our ability to track economic investment. Our economic action plan demonstrates that in that it doesn't really have any actions. I also want to look for new revenue sources. So something that I'm very interested in from a housing perspective is the creation of a municipal development corporation and the way that potentially could allow us to bring in secondary revenues as well as achieve some of our social mandates such as affordable housing.
I kind of like the idea of the municipal developmental corporation. I kind of like the idea of looking for new money. So why don't you start us off with this next question, Nicholas? New neighborhoods are filling fast. What is your timeline and funding approach for catching up on parks, recreation centers, libraries, and childcare generally in the South?
Yeah, like I think it's very important to have an action plan for that. And I think it's been demonstrative in the past that we have been kind of behind in terms of making sure that we have the infrastructure needs that meet the needs of Edmontonians that are moving into new neighborhoods. Sometimes I think it does depend on tough choices too. Sometimes the thing that can be better in the South, like from a school perspective, for example, rather than having half-empty schools, sometimes a longer commute to a school might be the better solution. When it comes to other essential services, such as like fire services, that might be something that needs to be given higher priority. Park space, again, it's determining what we have available and what sort of density are we meeting with it. Like a great example of trying to like pace with the growth of neighborhoods that I've struggled with a little bit is transit on demand and the execution of transit. That in that respect, in these neighborhoods that aren't as densely populated, I'm sure John probably has some things that he could say about that with his transit background. But I don't know if transit on demand to ensure that transit is available for everybody is the right solution to provide alternative transit. So I'm kind of dependent on what's going on in each neighborhood and what kind of density is there, and then prioritizing what's the immediate need versus what are some of the things we can wait on.
All right, that's beautifully said. Thank you, John.
Yeah, for sure. Can you ask me the question there again, T?
Okay, so new neighborhoods are filling up very fast. What is your what is your timeline and funding approach for catching up on parks, recreation centers, libraries, and childcare in the South?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's what we're dealing with infill and stuff too as well. There's a rezoning application happening right now with a plot of land here in McEwen on Ellerslie Road and 115th Street, and it's pushing into. But the rezoning is to be more housing, which is absolutely desperately needed in the city. But we also need that park space if we're going to be increasing the amount of people that are living in the area. We need more parks, we need more schools, we need more places to play. I coached soccer for 10 years. We definitely need soccer pitches. I'm hearing a lot about cricket pitches as well, which is not my sport, but I'm glad to hear about it. I'm glad to hear it's growing here too. But so I think when we're filling these older neighborhoods, or even some of the newer neighborhoods with infill, we need to make sure that those other services are still in place as well, and kind of really respectful of green space. So building out Heritage Valley, which is just jam packed with people right now. I think we need to be a little more proactive with that infrastructure, and also with our schools and working with our province to make sure that we provide the opportunities for them to build the schools too, and some of the facilities that they're responsible for. So.
Okay, thank you. My understanding, Rami, is I missed you out in the last set of questions concerning concerning property taxes. So my producer is asking that you take both questions together. What are your thoughts concerning property taxes?
Sorry, what's the exact question? I got a little bit lost.
Do you feel that property taxes are on the high, or what are your how do you feel about the current property taxes? Do you have any thoughts concerning it?
Well, the property tax is consisting of the assessment of the particular property. But I have seen it over and over. The assessment suddenly jumps up, and the homeowner, the taxpayer, comes and says, hey, my property didn't change from the last whatever years, a few years at least. Why is it jumping by 20, 30% and so on? And they're very unhappy. And then I feel, and I'm going to say this is just on my own, I feel that the city is pushing for something behind the scenes, because this is not acceptable. I don't know why assessment of a lot of properties keeps jumping up like that. Doesn't make any sense. I'm in real estate for over 25 years. I do commercial real estate. I teach real estate. I have been in the Real Estate Council of Alberta, which I was a council member. I know how the system, I know how governance works. But when I come to evaluate a particular property, that there is something broken in that particular system. Yet we need taxes. So I feel that a homeowner doesn't have the fair way to stand to particularly contest that particular property tax. The people in the assessment review board that they hear the case are wonderful. They are really nice people. It is just you are working against the city assessor who's doing this 24 hours a day. I don't mean it 24 hours, but a full-time job. And a homeowner tries to go and contest it. They are on the right, but they just don't know how to contest it.
I agree with you. There's something broken about the system. Now, can you please share your thoughts about catching up on parks, recreation centers, libraries, and childcare in the ward you're seeking to be councillor of?
Your question is very important, but it consists of two parts. There is the parts of the recreation and the parks and so on. It is needed, but it is, in my own opinion, it's not needed right now. We are going through tough times. The property taxes are increasing. The city next year, they need $1 billion in extra budgeting. The infrastructure department, my belief is they are seeking over $1 billion because there is a deficiency, there is a gap in the infrastructure. We are going through some kind of tariffs. We don't know if there is going to be inflation. There is a lot going on. Although parks are important, recreations are important, but they, in my opinion, let's hold on that at this particular time. But on the daycare, we need to help those working people to go to work and fulfill their duty so that that cycle of economy is actually rolling and it's going on.
Okay, some people may not agree with you. You say daycares are important, but parks maybe not. But I appreciate your opinion. Thank you very much. I appreciate your I appreciate you there. Thank you.
And I didn't say it's not important. It's not important now. Just hold on until we stable things. That's all.
I like the
Not
clarification.
forever.
All right. Okay. Let's hold on to we can pay for things. Appreciate that. Ms. Funke,
It's outside. Sorry?
should I read the question again, or you're good, ma'am?
Sure. I think I'm good. I think I understand. Yeah. So from my door knocking experience so far, especially in Kavanagh and very recently in Graydon Hill, there's a lot of young families there, and what I've been hearing, like every other door, is the fact that they need playgrounds. Playgrounds are part of, it's very essential to our well-being as growing families, as young families, and we always want to take advantage of our very short summers. So I really heard that, and it really hit home for me. And one of the things I've had the privilege of doing was actually looking for funding for projects and for programming such as playgrounds, health and wellness projects. One of the things that I would explore doing is working beyond with my city council colleagues, but also with city admin, but bringing in some public-private partnerships to figure out how we can build more playgrounds, build more, more essential, some of the services that we need for our health and well-being in the ward in Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi. It's one of the things that we need to start getting creative about, beyond just relying on the city council and governments to bring some of these projects for us, because we often do not have enough resources to do this.
You're watching the Candid Forum 2025 from LCC Media. My name is Tia Adeyemo. There are about 70 people watching on our stream right now. You do well to like and subscribe to our channel whilst you're here. I'm smiling because I keep shooting myself in the foot. I have all these questions I really want to get through, and we have to round up this segment, and I still have a ton of questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back to this segment hopefully later, and we'll move to the public facing side. There are so many questions on our stream, and we're just going to start from that so people know that we value them taking the time to listen. The first question, Nicholas is going to go first. Can I just address the producer? May I choose the questions? Producer, are you able to please project the question after I've said the question? Okay. All right. So here's the first question. For Nicholas, what would you do as a member of council to reduce property taxes? I think do you feel, Nicholas, that you've answered this question, or you have more things to say about this? Otherwise, we move to the next candidate with another question.
I'll respect all the questions. The one thing I guess I'll say about it is everything I covered with property taxes was pretty clear, but I think it starts with an audit. It starts with a formal audit of our spending. We really do need that transparency, and it's by going through every single line item to understand where our spending's at now.
All right, fair enough. Unfortunately, in this segment, I'm just going to have to call you and give you a question. We won't be able to go right around. Okay, so there's a question here from Deanna. I'm going to ask John, which political party do you align with? Who is the party backing you, if applicable? John, are you being backed by a political party?
I'm an independent candidate, and I have not been backed by a party. I don't have any call lists. I don't have any money coming in from political parties. I do actually really, really worry about municipal parties and kind of by extension, provincial and federal parties getting involved in municipal politics as well. I think we need to hold our independence. We need to make sure that we can work across the table with whoever's at the table, any councillors, any mayors, or not any mayors, our mayor. We have to work with the provincial government and the federal government as well. And so it doesn't matter who the party is. We have to be having good working relationships, and parties just get in the way of that. So.
Okay, thank you. You're an independent candidate. You answered that question. It's a question from Kalista to Ms. Funke. How will you ensure the city meets its climate and sustainability goals?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that we have to do as a city is working in collaboration with businesses, as well as like the ecosystem and as well as the provincial government to make sure that we're keeping ourselves in check. Again, waste management strategies and things like that. We have to always revisit those to make sure that we're keeping ourselves in check and we're keeping ourselves in line as well.
All right, I accept. Thank you very much for that answer. Sania has asked, how will candidates address the unpaid property tax issue? Rami, this is your question, sir. How will candidates address the unpaid property tax issue in regards to the province not paying their property taxes? And she says she reckons it's about $80 to $90 million that could help the city. What are your thoughts on that, sir? Did you get the question?
Well, yes, I did get the question, and it actually popped out here in the screen, and I really like the question. So the province, as far as I understand it, do not pay the property tax, but they pay something called in lieu of a property tax. So in other words, they give money to the city. And my understanding is they have actually stopped doing that because of budgeting issues. We must and we have to work with the province. We are a city, we are a municipality. If our provincial government have properties in the city, we are providing them services. So we need to advocate for them, and there has to be some kind of an agreement that we can come back to get some kind of help from there. So we have to work with all our MLAs and the actual government to work with that.
All right. Thanks for the education, sir. I'm grateful to hear it. I don't see any other question I'd like to do a second round. If I see any more questions. Okay, so we've already taken a question from Diana. So we're going to move to the segment where candidates are now asking each other questions. So the way this works is, Nicholas, there may be a question you like John to answer. Rami, there may be a question you want Ms. Funke to answer. So I'll give you 30 seconds to think about the questions and 30 seconds to ask the question. And whoever you ask that question will have 1 minute to answer. And when we are done with this segment, we can go back to my list of questions here. So whilst you're thinking about the questions, let's just give LCC Media a quick plug in. Thank you very much, everybody, for taking the time to watch your candidates talk about their platforms on Candidate Forum 2025. You do well to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel whilst you're there. And that's the end of my plug-in. Nicholas, are you ready? And who might you have a question for? All right, you muted, sir.
I swore I was going to not do that. My question, I had a question for Jennifer Rice I wanted to ask, but that's okay. I have my question for, let's say, Funke. Earlier this year, as I mentioned, the council received the Fiscal Gap Strategies Work Plan, which highlighted Edmonton's structural imbalance between the revenue we raise and the cost of services and infrastructure. If this gap isn't addressed, the consequences are higher taxes, reduced services, or deteriorating infrastructure. What are 2 actionable strategies you would take to improve this fiscal gap?
Thank you. Thanks, Nicholas. That's a great question. I think for me, the first thing, like I said, is I'm an avid researcher, is first get the evidence. Like, what is the evidence? What is the evidence that the city used to make this decision, right? And once we have that, then we can now go to actions and decisions. So that's the first thing I would do. That's the first action, the first step for me. And in reviewing that, there's always, again, what's the gap analysis and what's the impact analysis, right? So what is the impact that we're trying to achieve, or what's the outcome we're trying to achieve? And looking at that, and what's the impact on residents? We're the closest government to the people. So what is the impact that whatever decisions we make will have on folks? And that's what, for me, that's the first step forward. As someone who has never been a city councillor, I cannot tell you this and this and this is what I will do, but that is where I start. And then taking that information again back to the folks that are most directly impacted by our spending, our budgeting, right? Again, that I have committed to giving transparency for people's taxes. Let people be part of the solution as well. I don't make that decision. I represent people across the table, but my job is to also bring people together to also get the action moving forward. So we all have buy-in.
All right, thank you, Ms. Funke. Nicholas, I think that answers your question. We move to John.
Actually, I had a question for Councillor Rice as well, but I guess I'll have to ask her personally some other time. Not to pile on Funke, but I do have a question for you. You brought up P3s for playgrounds. I was school council secretary at Johnny Bright in our ward here for the last 5-6 years. It's a Honeywell P3 project there, and getting anything done in that school. We fundraised for a scooter rack for not very long, but to just get it installed into our playground was a real pain in the you know what. So I guess I'm curious, and I'm honestly a little bit worried about you saying P3s. What other projects, what other kind of areas do we see P3s being a good use of our attention?
One of the things I've done actually when we working with us, I worked with City Council, City Admin, and also a non-profit organization here in Edmonton. We worked together to find some housing solutions, and we had to tap into the private sector. So it was all sectors coming together to find the solution. Meetings. It took us a long time, but we were meeting, we were discussing, we were collaborating together to come up with the solution. So sometimes we try to do these projects in silos. In my experience of what works and has worked is coming together. Who convince? I'm willing to convince, willing to bring people together to get to that point. Because at the end of the day, if we're all working towards the same goal, towards the same outcome, chances are people have the buy-in and people will want to belong to that process. And I've seen it work in several projects here in Edmonton.
Okay, guys, you've asked Ms. Funke twice now. Let's now talk. Let the boys talk to themselves. Come on. All right. Okay. So, Ms. Funke, do you have questions of your own to Nicholas, Rami, or John?
I think I have a question for Nicholas. Sorry, I was writing it down. And you say earlier you said that we have a spending problem, or the city currently has a spending problem. So can you let us know, can you elaborate on that as to maybe what areas or what of our city currently you see that we're overspending right now?
Yeah, for sure. So I've had the opportunity to be able to work on issues across the board in various different committees. There's one that always kind of comes to mind to me. I remember advocating on behalf of safe and inclusive spaces for members of the queer community. I was part of a larger initiative which was addressing public safety for marginalized communities as a whole. So this included racialized communities, queer community, and women and the Indigenous community, as well as a scholarship grant was also tied into that for some reason. When the city was coming up with sort of its approach to be able to bring those initiatives to the forefront, they talked about forming different committees. And they wanted to form a committee for each marginalized group, each one of those being separate committees, which kind of goes against intersectionality that is quite popular, or not popular, but quite positive within the community of marginalized people. I know that as a queer man myself. So what they didn't think about was the spending tied to this. So 4 committees, 4 operational budget, consulting, 4 consultants to figure out who should serve on these committees. All of this is operational spending, eating away at the full capital costs that were devoted to this. I don't want to see costs go down. I just wanted to deliver more value for what we're allocating to these initiatives. So cut operational spending. That's a big piece for me. So that's just one example.
Okay, does that answer your question, ma'am? All right, thank you very much. Rami?
Thank you. So my question is for John. John, moments ago that we were being asked about funding for parks and recreation and daycare. So you have agreed with that. But right now, the city is going to have $1 billion deficit next year. economics are not standing? And do you still stand with your position that these parks and recreation, which I'm not saying that they are not important, they are important for every community, of course, but is it important for us to continue in that path at this particular time?
Do you want a shorter answer or a long answer? I'd say short answer, yes. I mean, we need to make sure that we have places for people to congregate, community to gather, places for soccer and sports to happen for our kids. As I said, in kind of the taxing and spending part of this forum, we need to get creative with our funding arrangements with other levels of government, and honestly, just kind of clean up some of the middleman in between. The people see value in the services you get, right, and see value in the soccer fields being mowed. They see value in the infrastructure that's there. They don't necessarily see value in kind of all the little parts in the middle there between us making those decisions and delivering on them. So I think we can do better on that front. I know we can because I've seen it, but we also need to make sure that we're looking creatively outside of that as well. Just working well with other levels of government, so to fund those things.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
All right, so that wraps up that segment. Sorry, my phone is blowing up, but different people are asking me different questions, but the questions are not for me, they are for you. So we're going to have another round of the public sector questions from the public segment. Nicholas is smiling, telling me he's enjoying being in the moment. So we're going to start with you, sir. What is your plan for improving transit safety and security to encourage higher ridership? John Tucker asks this question. 30 seconds so we can go through all these questions. You got that?
Got it. I'm a person with epilepsy, so I take LRT and transit a lot. Safety for me, my background's land development and infrastructure planning. I've done a lot of work in that. Design is a big piece that can play into safety. Turnstiles on the platforms, I see that as one easy piece to bring about safety. It's one element, it's not all of them, but it's one element that I think could create a safer environment on the LRT.
All right, that's good. Thank you. I got a question here. Either Funke or John can answer this. Sania goes, my parents live in your ward and they love both of you and can't decide. They're wondering what your plans are to combat gender inequities and rising levels of hate and racism. All right, the question has been displayed on your screen. Both of you can answer it, or either of you. Who's going to go first?
I can go.
All right.
And thank you so much, Sanea, for this question. I think it's a very important one when we talk about community safety and well-being. One of the things that I plan to, I want to continue to build on is the anti-racism plan. I worked very closely with that. I've done a lot of work in the anti-racism space here in Edmonton, as well as the anti-Black racism strategy as well, which has unfortunately been stalled and has not really been implemented currently. So a lot of the work that I've done is in that space here in Edmonton, centering equity deserving and equity seeking groups' voices and their issues, and making sure that their experiences are not lost in whatever policies or whatever issues that we're discussing. It is something that I have spent over a decade doing here in Edmonton.
Thank you. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I walk with a lot of privilege, white, straight male. I gotta use that for good if I can, right? And so, yeah, you definitely believe in equity, definitely believe in representation. All those things are really important. And for me, I guess, a lot of the volunteer work that I've done with Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues was, advocating for and championing building relationships with equity seeking organizations like Ribbon Rouge, like Africa Center, like Sisters Dialogue, and really trying to make sure that people feel safe and people feel included in some of our institutions as well. And I think that's a big part of this whole thing, right? My personal team here for the campaign, I've also tried to build that around being representative of Greater Edmonton. So my campaign manager is actually from Trinidad Tobago. My volunteer director is from Jamaica. I have representation from Central America. Lots of different backgrounds of my team. Some queer representation as well, and it's important to kind of hear all those voices. I've also been actively trying to get out and engage with groups like Muslim YMG, once again, Sisters Dialogue, and just kind of making sure that I'm hearing things. I make a lot of assumptions, I think sometimes one way, and my eyes get open every single day when I just make sure I'm listening as well. So I think we just continue that on, right? And as said, if I'm in this space and leadership, I make sure that I'm also using that privilege for the betterment of all. So
I like when you say, thank you, John, there. I like when you say it's important to hear these voices. Thank you for that answer. Rami, I've got a question here for you. I'm going to read it. City Council and City Admin has made moves to handicap our city's arts and culture industry and have ignored our tourism industry. Do you see the tourism industry as important? And how would you support festivals, tourism, arts, and culture in Edmonton? So did you understand the question? Would you like me to repeat?
No, I definitely understand it. And that's a very important question again. Why? Because everybody looks for all the activities that's happening in the city. Those are actually puts the city together. It's like tying everybody's together, whether it's the folk fest, whether it's a ballet, whether it's a musical event, whether it's some kind of a sport event. That tourism is extremely important for our city, and I am very happy and very proud. I have done property management, and I have seen the number of dollar value that brings to other landlords who are renting their properties for the summer or for special events and so on. So those are extremely important, and I look forward for our city to always build on that. This is what I look for, me and my family. We have a weekend, we have a special event, we want to go, we want to enjoy, we meet other people, we meet people from the city. That's extremely important for every single city, especially our city that I have been living here for.
I agree with you. Tourism arts is very important, as is culture and all this other kind of stuff. So thank you for that answer. And we're going to take one final public submitted question, and then we'll return back to what we were doing before we took a break. How do you plan to address exponential growth in homelessness? And I know the ward you're seeking to, that you're running in, it feels a bit posh, I think. We don't see a lot of homelessness. And I say this because I lived in Ward EP. I promise you, I learned how to say these words, and you guys will slaughter me. I lived in your ward for 5 years, and I think rent is just too expensive, and we're coming to affordability as well. Because when my sister moved there, I could not afford to live in your very nice, posh, decent ward. So it's very, very beautiful too. Anyway, I digress. How do you plan to address the exponential growth in homelessness? Let's start with John, please. Thank you.
I'm seeing it every day on the front lines of transit, and it's our houseless population has grown to 5,000 people now in this city, and there's a lot of people that are living in crisis. I have 2 friends that are living on the streets right now, and none of us are very far from it. They're dealing with systemic issues. They're dealing with trauma and addiction and a whole whack load of stuff. A lot of stuff that falls out, unfortunately, outside of city's jurisdiction and ability to honestly deal with effectively. But I'm telling you, it's killing our staff. It's killing our workers on the LRT. It's making people feel unsafe. I love the train. I want the train everywhere, but it's got to be safe to be successful. And even just seeing people sleeping on a train makes people feel uneasy, right? And so this winter, I watched some pretty serious violent acts live that I lost staff members because they pulled the pin that day. They said, no more, I can't deal with this anymore, right? And so again, it's costing us all this money to be reactive in this space, right? So but it's also, like, strangely enough, like, making empathetic people less empathetic and because they're just so overwhelmed and tired, and that's a real terrible place to be in, right? So I think we need to, honestly, the people that are in power need to be advocating as much as they can to end the homelessness. We got to get back to this 10-year plan in homelessness. We need to humanize people as well, and really know that people that are living on the streets are human beings and not just
okay. Thank you, John.
a waste.
Humanize people.
Sorry, I'm pretty concerned about this one. So.
From my point of view, I've got 10 minutes to finish this, and I want to do a bit more. But thank you for your thoughts there. We need to humanize people, Ms. Funke.
So as a trained social worker and someone who worked in the Housing First program here in Edmonton, when I did some frontline work, this is a human issue. It is not for one government. It is not for one sector, not just the housing sector. It is an issue that needs for all of us to come together and dig into sort of like our humanity, to figure out the best way to support one another. It is mental health sector, it's the housing sector, it's the mental addiction sector, it's every one of us, the economic sector, it's every one of us coming together collaboratively, working on solutions, all levels of government, municipal, provincial, federal, everyone. We need all the resources we can get, all the expertise from various systems to be able to solve this one. And I am willing to work. I have worked in the sector frontline. I have worked in housing policy. I'm currently doing a research about how policies bump to further marginalize folks in the houselessness sector. So it's something that is very dear to my heart as well, and something that I'm willing to work with everyone across the table to make sure that we end homelessness once and for all.
Thank you, Rami.
Your question is actually complicated. I don't have a specific answer, and the reason for that is what do you classify as a homeless? Are we talking about the poverty of the people, or are we talking about the people who have mental issues? We cannot combine them together. Not because we see them out in the street, we just label them, they have encampments and so on. I am having difficulty like that. If people are homeless because of poverty, we need as a society to give them a chance to stand up on their feet, a chance to find work. So not only that we need to shelter them, there is a lot of homeless people because of economic factors. We need to give them a helping hand. We need to create for them some kind of a shelter, give them some kind of job incentives, not just find them a job, but maybe we teach them some kind of a trade. And that will take a big percentage of those homeless people out of the equation. Then we're left with those people who are on the mental problems, drug addiction, and all that stuff, like Ms. Funke have said. And I really appreciate her answer because it was dead on. And that is not just one person who can solve that. We need a lot of people. We need the communities. You have at the beginning of this program, you talked about the Hope Mission. And Hope Mission, those are the people who are at the front line. We need to consult with them. We need to consult with the province and so on.
Thank you very much, sir. I agree with you. The Hope Mission, they do amazing work in the city of Edmonton. Nicholas?
Short answer to homelessness, house them. Like, no matter where you are in your journey in life, having a home is a need. It's not a want. So how do you do that in terms of policy and government? I think partnerships matter. On the affordable housing level, I recently did a project where we were able to work with all three levels of government to fund supportable, affordable units. It was a mixed market project, though, so we tied it to the market units, and the project as a whole was de-risked as a result. Why am I bringing this up? Because the partnership improved financing, ensured a developer was able to get profitability, and because of that, ensured that the project was built and the housing was provided. And in this case, it gave the community organization sustainable funding for wraparound services, which I think plays into that decentralization of social supports, which is so important in cities as well. For supportive housing, where we're dealing with people that other candidates have alluded to that might have substance abuse problems or mental health issues, because we've de-risked those other projects, that allows the municipality and allows other levels of government to take a chance on being able to fund those projects that provide the most vulnerable with the housing that they need and really invest in those as well.
All right, thank you very much. So we move to the final segment of this show. There is no forum without the candidates. So thank you so very much for taking the time to answer. I promise you we were in talks with Councillor Rice's office, and this afternoon she pulled out. So she was destined to be here, but then, you know, as it is, things happen. But nonetheless, I think we've all had a robust conversation. I think members of your constituent, they know what each and every one of you stands for. They understand a bit more about your platform than they did previously. As we roll into the last segment, you have 30 seconds. I'm just going to call you, starting with Rami. What's your plan to prevent service gaps and crowding while construction? So I beg your pardon, that's not my question. Sorry again, Rami. What targeted support do you have for small businesses affected by construction in your ward?
The city has to have some kind of an incentive plan, because I have seen that all over when it was White Avenue or in other sectors of the particular city. The tenant always pays the landlord money for the rent, and they pay for the common area. The common area consists of some kind of a property tax. So if the city triggers to the unit owner, the commercial property owner, some kind of a tax incentive because of the construction, and it has to be passed on to the tenant, then there is some kind of incentives. Otherwise, the city must work with these businesses. If the business is out of business, we lose a lot. This is not acceptable for anybody to do that.
Okay, thank you. Nicholas, what's your strategy to attract medical, tech, and professional services around new stations without sacrificing affordability?
New stations? What do you mean by stations?
Or new areas in your ward.
Okay, like attracting that talent?
Yeah.
Well, my strategy for attracting that talent is building strong partnerships between the municipality and the post-secondary institutions that educate them and cultivate their knowledge. I think of another one, if you don't mind me taking it maybe just in a slight different direction. I've done a lot of work on tech talent because I feel a real emerging industry in our city is tech and innovation. We have some of the best institutions for training people in that area, but then they move away. They move to Calgary. And I think that's the case of a lot of industries. People move away. They study here and move away. I want to draw a more direct pipeline between the post-secondary institutions and people getting their first shot through the municipality, who's a more complex, stable business than the city, or at least it should be. The city has the opportunity to work with the post-secondaries to create new opportunities for recent graduates or people even finishing their degrees.
All right. Thank you very much, John. What commitments will you make for timely construction notices, two-way updates, and ward-wide town halls during major construction works?
From my office?
Yeah.
Well, so community leagues have been my life for many years now with Heritage Point Community League, Montrose. I'm very active in the community and very excited to make sure that I'm using those resources that are already there, that have been there for 100 years, to make sure that the community is heard and kind of empowering the community voices. So I'd be very happy to continue those relationships, supporting those relationships, funding those relationships. Something I've actually heard, and you can criticize Councillor Rice for a lot of things, but communication's not been one of them in terms of newsletters and such as well. And I know those newsletters need to continue on as well. And so, getting out newsletters every quarter or every half a year was definitely be something that I've heard has been very much valued, and I think that should carry on as well in this ward. So, being out at events, doing these town halls online, even having coffees out in the field is important as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Ms. Finke, what data-driven steps will you take to reduce property crime or generally crime in your ward?
I think we need to build more community partnerships. I heard recently in Blackmore, they have a very strong neighborhood watch program, but again, looking into those programs and seeing how we can leverage and build up on them. One of the things I have done in the past was help the Kavanagh neighborhood to help them build their neighborhood watch program. I did that with a group of folks. So again, we need to come back to community. When I was speaking to the folk who was talking about, the individual was talking about speed racing the other day, most times if something happens, the first people who respond are usually the neighbors, usually the community, even before the police gets there. So how do we strengthen our ability as a community to look out for each other, to make sure that we're all safe, and then that spreads out into the wider sort of like EPS and other community safety measures as well. But again, strengthening our neighborhood watches, our community watches, and for a newer neighborhood like Chappelle, where I live, that some of those are not currently being in place. How do we start to build some of those as well?
All right, so thank you very much, Ms. Finke, and thank you very much, Nicholas, Rami, and John, for what an amazing forum this has been. I'm going to ask you the last question, and as you're answering the last question, could you please also offer your closing remarks? So, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we're going to extend a minute or two after 9 o'clock, all right? We're not going to keep you here till midnight, I promise. Just 1 or 2 minutes. And you're going to answer this question. Here is a question. As a councillor, how will you balance the city's need for density with the specific needs of established communities like McEwen and Rutherford for schools, green space, and infrastructure? Did you want me to read this question again? You're going to answer this question in 30 seconds and put your closing statement to your constituency in 20 seconds. Who's going to go first? Rami, would you like to go first, sir?
Yes, I have. Thank you so much. In regards to how the density is, the city is actually being overpopulated in the parameters city, and that's why we hear a lot of infill. So the infill is extremely important. Please don't confuse the infill that I'm talking about with the infill that is in the news about 8plex and 6plex and so on. There is a lot of very nice properties in the city core, closer to all the services, and actually they do have the services in the infrastructure right now. So those are, if you go into neighborhoods like Ritchie or something like that, you see very nice houses, and they are bringing that population back, and which is helping the businesses and so on. That will definitely help the businesses. In closing remarks for the particular viewers, I just want to say I am not trying to run for a job. I have decided I'm not happy with certain things about the city. So either I do something about it, or I stand up and do something like what I'm doing right now, or I just sit in a coffee shop and complain to a friend of mine. So this is, to me, is definitely work that needs to be done. This is a city needs to run a business as a business, and not there to please a particular group or somebody. We are there to hear everybody's voice, and we act accordingly. Thank you.
You know, I appreciate that. You're running because you think everybody's voice needs to be heard. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your time tonight. John?
Thanks, T, and thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure being on Ladies Corner magazine. So yeah, I'm surprised you brought up the McEwen Rutherford infill project again. You know, I had 3-4 people reach out to me from the neighborhoods about that very project, and you need infill. We need density. We need people to have homes and places to live, but you also need things for them to do, places for them to worship, places for them to learn, for their kids to learn, places that are walkable. It fits within the city's plan as well, and so we need to be really respectful of that and kind of advocate for that as well. And so something I did when those people reached out to me, I sent a letter to the city. I definitely engaged with all the communities around here as well, even just as a candidate now, not as community president anymore, and just making sure that people are heard, gathering that information and pushing it out there, and pushing out ways that they can reach out to and make sure that their voices are heard as well. And I think that's part and parcel of this whole thing. So neighborhoods are complex, so let's make sure that we're respectful of that. So thanks for having me. Vote Morgan.
Right. Okay, thank you, Nicholas.
Thanks so much for that. Yeah, I believe densification is important. Our city's growing, so we need to match that with infill targets and greenfield targets as well to be able to support that growth. I think what has been unequivocally heard across the board in every ward is community doesn't feel like it's been well engaged. There's the sentiment of being informed as opposed to engagement. I think there's work to be done to make sure people are being brought along for the journey that is densification. Design plays a big part into it too, and holding accountability on industry to create good design, because we need economic diversity of housing. We need diversity of housing products or different types of housing as well. And that comes with good design standards too. So I support that. To kind of wrap things up, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share my thoughts today. I really appreciate it, T. I'm going to draw from the old moniker, steal from one of my other candidates. We're City of Champions, and I really want to be proud of that. And I think that there's a lot to be proud of in the city. So I want to continue growing that and growing a sense of pride in our city through affordable housing, safe communities, and opportunities for every Edmontonian. So I'm ready to champion its people in every sense.
Yeah, we're City of Champions. Miss Funke.
Okay, to answer your question first, I think there's lots of vacant land and unused land across the city limits that hopefully we can explore more. Yes, we need density for based on the housing, different housing needs, but I think there's other options that we can also explore when it comes to that issue as well. In closing, again, T, thank you so much for championing this, and also to the other candidates. Your thoughts and ideas have been put out. I think Edmonton needs bold leadership. What Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi needs an advocate that listens first and then takes informed action. Our growth has taught us something. Edmonton is a land of opportunity, and we need to harness that opportunity and run with it in order for us to achieve our strategic vision, where my son, my daughter wants to continue to build from where we stop. So thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, you're welcome, ma'am. Thank you, Ward Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi. Yes, I got there in the end. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you, Edmonton. You're watching from our YouTube channel, LCC Media 1. This is Candidate Forum 2025 for Ward Ipiihkoohkanipiaohtsi. Candidate Forum carries on tomorrow from 5:30 p.m. You do well to visit our website, www.ladiescorner.ca, for the schedule. My thing is, may the best candidate win. You're all amazing. You bring in different things. It's been a pleasure listening to you. I've learned so much about your platforms, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Thank you so very much for watching. Good night.